everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cherelle and I am the creator and designer behind Cherelle Around Patterns. Today, I'm excited. I get to share with you my latest pattern, which is the Aimani Backpack. So let me show you and tell you all about it. And here she is, the Aimani Backpack. This backpack offers a hands-free solution to your everyday lifestyle. The stylish design features gorgeous piping to the front and the back of the bag. There is a front slip pocket for your coin pouch, which comfortably sits inside. And if you wish to keep it light for the day, you have a chain strap attachment, which is also detachable to the side of the bag. The inside compartment is spacious. You can carry your cell phone, your keys, a mini iPad, or any additional necessities that you wish to carry with you. As we turn it around to the back, we have a top handle carry along with two adjustable straps, one zipper pocket for additional storage, and a very stylish bag that everybody would want to have. So without further ado, let's get right into the tutorial. All right, so we're getting ready to get started with our cut pieces. I am using faux leather throughout this entire bag, and I'm also using contrasting fabric along with my main fabric choice. So at this point, you should have already cut your two fabric strip overlay pieces, two of your fabric strips, two straps, two handles. One should be at 9 inches, the other should be at 10 inches long, and two of your 332-inch foam welt cord pieces. I have the link in the description in this video as well in the pattern. I recommend this type of cording because it is very firm and stable and it really holds its shape very well. I do not like cotton piping, so more than likely you won't see me use that in any of my patterns moving forward. But please find something very similar. It really makes the bag look great when you're done with it. Next, you should have your front and back exterior pieces. Both of these two should have been fused with Decoville Light. And you should also have the front and back panel lining pieces as well. You should have one gusset exterior piece along with the lining. The gusset should be fused with Decoville Light. You should also have two zipper panel pieces. These two pieces are not fused with anything, followed by two zipper panel lining pieces. You should have two side connector pieces, two strap connectors. These two pieces will depend on whether or not you're using 1-inch hardware or 3/4-inch hardware. You should have two D-ring tabs. One should be 1 3/4 of an inch long. The other should be 1 1/2 inches long. You will have your coin pouch, one front pocket, one back strap band, and one slip pocket trim. For the remaining lining pieces, you should have a lining piece for the coin pouch, the front pocket, your slip pocket, and your back zipper pocket. And last but not least, let's go over our hardware. You should have one purse strap extender. Again, you can find the link for that in this video in the description box. You can also find it in the pattern. You should have two strap adjusters, 4 number 5 zipper pulls, 2 1/2-inch D-rings, 2 rectangle rings, 1 logo or handmade label, 10 rivets. The sizes vary between 6 to 8 millimeters, and you should have 3 number 5 zipper tape. The sizes should be 5, 7, and 19 inches long. Now that all of our cut pieces have been identified, let's do our checks and balances and make sure that we have stabilized the Decoville Light to all the right pattern pieces. So we should have the front and back panel stabilized as well as the gusset. We should have the stabilizer on the back of the coin pouch. Don't worry about the markings, that's just there. We should have our front pocket stabilized 1/2 inch below the top edge. Last but not least, our back strap band should have the fusible foam on the back or wrong side. And we should have our two D-ring tab pieces that should have either a scrap piece of Decoville or ribbon, whichever you prefer. We're done here. Let's move on to the next segment. Let's grab our front pocket and turn it over where the wrong side is facing up. We're going to make small snips around the top edge of the front pocket. We only want to cut just 1/8 of an inch down from the top edge. No more than that, because we don't want these cuts to show through once we fold this raw edge over. Once we've done that, grab your DST. We're just going to add a strip of DST right above the Decoville Light here. All right, give that a good press, and we're going to peel off the backing. And what you want to do next is to just fold down the raw edges right where you meet the Decaville light. So we don't want to go over the stabilizer. We want to meet right at the edge, and we're just going to fold that down all the way until we get to the other end of the front pocket, or the edge rather. Once you're done, your folded edge should look like this on the wrong side, and this is what the front side would look like. If you have dog ears or extra fabric that is hanging over the edge, just trim that end and make sure you do the same for the other end. And if you have any of your stabilizer peeping through the raw edges, just give that a good trim as well so we can have a nice flush edge. We don't want any extra fabric hanging over. All right, in this next step, we're getting ready to edge coat our front pocket. I am using the Gardini Base Coat Dense, and I have my applicator here to help with the application. And what we want to do is apply edge coat around all 3 sides of that raw edge. We want to apply at least 2 to 3 applications, allowing the application to dry in between each coat. And once the base coat has dried completely, we're going to apply our color of choice, and we're going to set this aside so that it can dry further, and we're going to move along to our next step. As we move along in our prep, our strap should have already been marked with our center line, and DST has been applied to that line or on either side of that line. And our additional pieces should have the same markings along with the DST. So that should be our trim, our 2 handle pieces, our 2 strap pieces, and of course our back strap band. So now that we have already identified the center line marking in our DST, we're going to put this aside and move on to our next step. We're getting ready to work on our straps, handle, and our piping strips. But for now, let's start with our straps. So on the wrong side, let's go ahead and remove the paper backing off of the actual tape. And we're just going to fold our strap to the center. So on one side of the strap, just fold that over until you reach the center line. And we're going to work all the way down until we reach the end. And we're going to flip this over and repeat the same on the other side. We're just going to fold that down to the center. And once you have finished with one strap, you will do the same to the second strap. And when you are complete, both of your straps should look like these 2 pieces here. As we get ready to mark our straps, I don't want this to be confusing, so I'm going to do both straps at a time. We're going to stick with our left strap, and we're going to stick with our right strap. There's a method to my madness, just follow me. So with our left strap, let's focus on this one. All we're going to do is mark a 1/2 inch line on one end of both straps. We're not marking both ends, we're just doing one end on both of our straps. So let's start with the left. I'm going to grab my ruler, and from the bottom edge, I'm going to measure up a half of an inch. However, I'm only going to make a mark on the left side of the strap. So as you notice, we have a division here. We just folded our straps inward, and all we're doing is focusing on the left side of the strap. So once you have marked your 1/2 inch line, it's only going to be on the left side. We're not doing the right side, just the left. Now we're going to come over here to the right side of the strap, and we're going to do the same, however, the opposite. And when I mean the opposite, we're just going to make a 1/2 inch line or mark on the right side of the strap. So we have left and we have right. So on the left strap, you have one line going to the left, and on the right side, we have one line going to the right. They do not come, the line does not go all the way across. It is only on 1/2 of the strap. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. So what we're going to do, again, we're going to focus on one strap at a time, and all we're going to do is cut right down the center of our strap, and we're only going to cut right up until we meet that 1/2 inch line. And then all we're going to do is cut across on our 1/2 inch mark. That's it. That's it. That's it. Just this. That's all we need to do. Nothing more. Now we're going to treat the other strap the same as we've done here. So again, we're just going to make a very short cut right down the center, and then we're going to cut right across at our line. We're not cutting all the way across. We're just cutting a small section off. You all may be wondering why I chose to do this, and that's just to reduce bulk when we put our straps, or when we attach our straps to the back panel of our bag. So now that this has been done, let's move on. Now that we have finished trimming one section off of one end of our strap, your entire strap should look like this. So we should only have one strap that has been trimmed on the edge. So what we're going to do now is treat the strap like we normally do. We're going to fold it lengthwise like a hot dog, and we're just going to add our clips and clip them into place, because later we're going to top stitch our strap on each side. So continue clipping all the way down to the end till you reach the end of your strap, and you're going to do the same for your second strap. And once you're done clipping, put them aside. Before we top stitch our two straps and handle pieces, we need to also fold in our raw edges on our handle pieces. So remove the DST backing and just fold the raw edge towards the center line on each of your 9 and 10 inch handle pieces. So after you have folded your raw edges towards the center, we're going to stop here and do nothing else. We're going to repeat the same step for the remaining handle. Now that we have folded our raw edges towards the center line on both of our handle pieces, let's put aside our 9-inch handle and focus on the 10-inch. Grab your ruler and your marking pen, and on the wrong side of your handle, your 10-inch handle, we're going to measure a 1/2 inch away from the bottom edge or raw edge of the handle piece. And we're just going to mark a line going across, and we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to measure a 1/2 inch on the wrong side and mark a line there. Once you have done that, grab a strip of DST, and we're just going to place our DST on the wrong side, right between the two marks that we just did. Let's remove the DST, and we're going to take our 9-inch handle, wrong side facing down, and we're going to place the 9-inch handle between the two marked lines, wrong sides together. So press that down, give it a good press, and your handle should look like this here. Also, if you want to do a two-tone handle, that's completely optional. That just means that you just choose 2 different colors for your handle. So you can do yellow on top or blue or whatever color. I just kept it simple and just did the two of the same colors on top of each other, and that is what it's going to look like once you are done. Now that we are done with the handle, we're getting ready to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch our 2 strap pieces and our handle, and we're going to top stitch along the long edges on each side of the handle and our 2 straps here. Right. Okay, before we top stitch our strap, I just want to quickly identify what side will be the wrong and right side. So the wrong side of our strap will be the portion that has been cut out. This will be flat on our sewing machine, and the right side will be the side that doesn't have the cutout. So we're going to top stitch the folded edges first, and then followed by the long edge on the opposite side. So we're going to do that for both of our straps. With the handle, we're going to do the opposite. So the shorter piece should be facing right side up on your sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch along both of the long edges and do the same for the opposite side. We have now completed our top stitching for our straps and our handle piece, and we now know that the right side is the side that has the cutout underneath. So this is now considered the right side that has the neat top stitching for both of our straps. So when you turn them over, these two will now be considered the wrong side. Same applies to our handle, except for it's the opposite, because when we lay the handle flat, we will actually have our cutouts facing upwards. So we want the neat top stitching to be visible on the right side. We're going to put this aside for now. So for the next step, we're going to focus on making our piping. So what I want you to do is go ahead and grab one of your piping strips and the foam welt cord. And we want to encase our cording between our fabric strip. So all we're doing is just encasing it, just like that. And we're going to get our clips and just make sure that the cording is seated nicely in the center of your piping strip. And we're just going to add our clips so that we can hold it in place. And we're going to work all the way down to the end of our piping strip. Now that we're done matching our raw edges together, I want you to repeat the same for the other piping strip. What we're going to do next is we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to base stitch. You can either use a zipper foot or a cording foot. And the objective is for you to stitch as close as possible to the cording so that we have a nice snug fit. We're going to base stitch from one end to the other, and we're going to repeat the same on our other piping strip. Also, I want to note, when you're basting your cording to the with the fabric strip, make sure that you're using the same color thread. We don't want the stitching to be visible when we put our bag together, so we want to hide that stitching as much as possible. So let's go to the sewing machine and do the same. Let's base stitch both of our piping strips. Now that we're done with our piping, your two pieces should look similar to this. We're going to put this off to the side and we're going to start working on our front pocket. In this step, you will need your front pocket exterior and your front pocket lining. For the exterior, your edge coating should already be applied and it should be dry at this time, and your top edge should already be folded over towards the stabilizer. Since we have finished that, we are actually going to do the same with the lining piece minus the edge coating. So let's put the exterior off to the side, and with your pattern piece, go ahead and mark your line that should be a 1/2 inch below the top edge. So use your pattern piece as a guide. And what we're going to do, similar to the front pocket, we're going to make small snips around the curve of the top edge, just about 1/8 of an inch. And we're just going to go all the way towards the opposite end, like so. Grab your DST and just apply a strip of that right above the marked line that you previously made. Remove the backing from the DST, and we are going to fold down our top edge towards the line that we just marked. And the reason we're doing this is so that we're creating a flat surface for our front pocket. We do not want it to be bowed or curved in because of the tightness around the top band here. So we just want to eliminate that. Press out your seams up here, or your folded edge up here. And if you have excess fabric, just trim off those dog ears to the left and right. And then we're also just going to trim 1/8 of an inch away from each edge to include the bottom, so we don't have any overhanging fabric. So now that you have trimmed 1/8 of an inch from all three sides, go ahead and grab your front pocket exterior, wrong side facing up. And what we're going to do next, we're going to apply glue just to the wrong side of the front panel. And with the lining fabric facing up, we're going to match wrong sides together. So place your lining right along the top edge of your front pocket. Press that down, smooth it out on each side. And once you're done, we're going to flip this over. We're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch around from one end of the top edge to the other. Let's do that now. Our front pocket should now be top stitched at the top edge from one end to the other. We're going to put this aside. Now I want you to go ahead and grab your coin pouch, your 1.5 inch D-ring tab, your 1/2 inch D-ring, your number 5 zipper pull, and your 5 inch zipper tape. For now, we're going to put these aside and focus on the coin pouch. Before we begin, if you have any extra stabilizer that is peeping out from the edges, go ahead and give that a trim. We want a nice clean edge before we begin. So flip your coin pouch over, and with your pattern piece, using it as a template, with your marker, trace around the zipper box on the wrong side of your coin pouch. And again, please excuse the markings. I was cutting something else out and I don't waste fabric. So anyway, now that we have our zipper box here, we're going to cut this piece out only. So let's do that now. Now that we have cut out the zipper box center piece, here's a little tidbit. Instead of cutting your D-ring tabs prior to cutting your fabric, you can actually wait until you cut this out and use this piece here for your D-ring tab, since it already has a stabilizer on the back, just to save you some time ahead. So we're going to put this aside if you need it, but we're going to put that aside. And if you want to have a more professional look, you can also edge coat the inside of your zipper box if you want a neat edge, but I'm not going to do that today. So again, turn your zipper pouch onto the wrong side, and we're going to make a couple of measurements here. So we're going to make a 3/8 inch mark above the zipper box, top and bottom. So flip it over and do the same on the other side. And then on each side on the outside edge, we're just going to make a 1/4 inch mark on the outside edge. And the reason that we're doing this is so that we can center our zipper appropriately or accurately. That way you don't have to worry about removing and repositioning the zipper tape. I have a hard time doing that, so this just helps me. So let's put this aside for now. Let's grab our number 5 zipper tape. With an 1/8 of an inch DST, we're just going to apply that right on the top edge of the right side of your zipper tape. And let's do the same for the opposite side. Next, we're going to install our zipper of choice. So let's do that now. Okay. And once we have that installed, let's go ahead and grab our coin pouch. And again, back to its wrong side, back on the wrong side, and we're going to peel off the backing of our zipper tape here. And at this point, it really doesn't matter which way your zipper is facing. We'll get to that in a minute. So for now, let's just lay our zipper right in between the lines that we just marked, and just make sure that it's right at the lines. And that way you will have a more accurate placement for your zipper tape. And that way you don't have to reposition. It's already centered for you. And let me get that out the way. Okay, so your zipper tape will look like this. Let's grab our coin pouch lining, and on the wrong side, mark your zipper box placement. The only difference is that we're not going to cut it out like we did for the exterior. So grab your pattern piece and place that down on the wrong side of your lining, and we're just going to draw the box. However, you're going to make a horizontal line going across and make a short V on each side. And we're just going to cut along those lines inside. Be sure not to cut past or outside of the zipper box. We want to stay within the lines. So with your scissors or an X-Acto knife, Again, make those small cuts. And once you're done making your cut, it should look similar to this. And with your ruler, measure 1/4 inch above the zipper box on the wrong side of your lining, and do that all the way around the perimeter of your zipper box. And when you're done, it should look similar to this. Grab your DST, and we're just going to place our DST right in between those two lines. Remove the backing off from one side, and we're going to fold that cutout towards the 1/4 inch line. Now we're going to repeat the same for each section. Once you're done with that, you're going to flip it over, and you should have clean edges all the way around your zipper box. Let's put this aside for now, and we're going to grab our 1.5 inch D-ring tab and our 1/2 inch D-ring, and we're just going to insert the tab through the 1/2 inch D-ring, and you can use glue or DST and just glue the bottom edge of the D-ring tab. Fold the tab wrong sides together, matching the raw edges. Now, before moving on, you can do two options. You can leave the edges raw, or you can edge paint each end of the D-ring tab. Totally up to you. So now that we have completed this, let's put that here, and we're going to grab the coin pouch exterior piece. Turn it to where the wrong side is facing up, and what we're going to do is place our D-ring tab, leaving about an 1/8 inch of a gap between the exterior side and the D-ring. We want to have enough space so that when we top stitch, we don't top stitch close to the D-ring. So we want a little bit of space here. So we're just going to place it as close as we can. If you want to fold this over to kind of see how it would look, you can do that, so you can make small adjustments whether or not you need to move the D-ring tab up or down slightly. Before you top stitch, and I've already done so, I left a little bit of information out by mistake. So when you install your D-ring tab, it's important to note that depending on whether you install it to the left or the right of the coin pouch will matter depending on the way your zipper is opening or closing. So if you are installing your zipper to the wearer's right, and they're right-handed, meaning that they're going to open the zipper from left to right, then the D-ring tab should be on the opposite end of the closure. Now, if you're zip opening from right to left, then you would have your D-ring tab on the opposite. And if you want to know what that looks like, if I close the pouch, I want the D-ring tab to be on the right, because when I open the pouch, this is how someone who is right-handed would open the zipper pouch. So you want to make sure that the D-ring tab is opposite to the person's wear. And let's grab your lining piece, and we're going to use our glue and add glue to the wrong side of the coin pouch. And we're going to do that on each end of the flap, and make sure you get the side edge as well. And with the lining side facing up, the right side facing up, we're going to lay our lining wrong sides together with the exterior coin pouch. Make sure the zipper box is centered with the zipper tape. Give that a good press. And make sure you press the side edges. And we're going to flip it over. And if you have fabric that is overhanging from the edge, just trim that away. I like my lines to be straight, so I do a little bit of cheating. So I like to pre-mark my zipper lines, and I'm just measuring 1/8 of an inch outside of the zipper box on the side, and I just add another mark, small mark here on one end, and another mark here on the opposite side. And what this does basically is that when I'm top stitching around the zipper box, I know where my pivot marks are. So I start from one end, go down, pivot across, go up, and pivot across the opposite direction, and that would be my zipper box. So you're going to do the same. You don't have to do the lines or anything, but we're just going to top stitch around the perimeter of the zipper box. So let's do that now. Okay, so now that we have top stitched, let's take our long thread tails and we're just going to pull them through between the lining. So you may have to pull this back a little bit. And I'm just going to reach inside and pull out those thread tails. And then we're just going to tie them off and tuck them in between the lining and the coin pouch exterior. All right, and snip away the excess and just press that back down. And with our glue, we're just going to add glue to the outer edge of the coin pouch because we're going to fold it in half and we're going to stick it together. And try to keep the glue very thin. We don't want the glue to bleed out into the pouch itself because, you know, we're going to be adding coins and money and we don't want the glue to stick to that. So we just want a very small bead of glue to the outer perimeter because once we're done, we're just going to top stitch this anyway. All right, so let's fold this in half and we need to match our raw edges together as perfectly as possible. So press that along the perimeter, the outer edge of the coin pouch, and we're going to add a few clips to keep it in place. We're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch from the top edge around all three sides until we get to the opposite edge. Let's do that now. Now that we're done top stitching, I'm going to grab my lighter and I'm going to remove any fabric that may be sticking out by singeing the edges for a nice clean appearance before I get ready to edge coat. And like we did before with the front pocket, I'm just going to apply my base coat to all three sides of my coin pouch. I'm going to do maybe 2 to 3 applications and the final coat will be my color, and then I'm going to set it aside for it to dry, and then I will see you in the next step. In this step, we're getting ready to work on our zipper panel and our gusset. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and mark your centers on your zipper panel exterior and lining pieces to include the zipper tape. And what I want you to do is take your zipper panel lining, make sure it's facing right side up on your workspace. Your zipper panel should be facing right side up as well. We're going to lay the zipper tape right on top of our zipper panel lining, and we're going to line them up with the raw edge of both pieces. Make sure that it is centered. And then we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to base stitch all the way across. Let's do that now. Now that the zipper tape is basted to the zipper panel lining, we're going to grab the zipper panel exterior piece. What we're going to do, again, make sure your centers are marked. We're going to flip the exterior piece over where the wrong side is facing up. And we're just going to take that and place that right on top and sandwich the exterior to the zipper panel lining. Now that we clip the 3 pieces into place, we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're going to stitch a 3/8 of an inch across the top edge of the exterior. I like to do that with the exterior, with the lining facing up. That way the vinyl doesn't shift from underneath me. it just works better. I'm just giving you a tip. Maybe that will help. So let's go ahead to the sewing machine and do that now. So after we stitched our 3 pieces together, I am doing something a little different. I've added a DST along the top edge of the exterior panel as well as the lining. And the reason I did that is because when I get ready to pull these pieces away from each other, I want to make sure that I have a nice clean edge and there is no shrinkage, because I want to make sure my zipper panel lines up exactly with the width of the gusset. So what we're going to do now, and like I said, this is completely optional. We are going to take the lining and we're going to push that away from the zipper tape. And then we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the same for the exterior piece. We're going to push that away from the zipper tape. And that way when I do this and I get ready to top stitch, I don't have to fight with the fabric. But if you chose not to do that, then just grab your clips and then clip these 2 pieces together. We're going to take it to our sewing machine and we're going to top stitch the edge that's close to the zipper. Okay, so we're just going to top stitch from one end all the way to the other end. All right, now let's repeat the same steps for the other side. So I have my lining piece right side facing up, and I have the zipper tape that is not treated with anything. I'm going to lay this right side up, or the zipper tape right side up on the right side of the lining piece, okay? And then we're going to clip the zipper tape into place. And then we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to base stitch the zipper tape onto our zipper panel lining. Now let's grab our zipper panel exterior. We're going to flip that over where the wrong side is facing up, and then we're just going to transfer and place that right on top of the zipper tape that we just basted to the zipper panel lining. So make sure your centers are lined up. Grab your clips and clip them into place. And stitch a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance across one end to the other alongside the long edge. So once again, I applied DST to the exterior and the lining piece, and I'm going to remove the backing and push back the lining away from the zipper. And I'm going to repeat the same on the exterior side. Once you pull the 2 pieces away from the zipper, you should now clip them together. And as we've done before, we're going to our sewing machine and we're going to top stitch alongside the zipper teeth. Our zipper panel is almost complete. We now have top stitching on each panel. Now this step is crucial. Do not forget, I have done it before and you will be very disappointed if you do it too. We're going to install our zipper pulls. Do not forget this step. I have seen so many people do it and they are highly upset once they realize that they forgot to add the zipper and they have already finished the bag. Isn't that something? Okay, all right, so let's just add 1 zipper pull to one end. So we've added a zipper to this end. We're going to leave it there, and then we're going to do the same on the opposite end of the zipper panel. And voila, you now have 2 perfectly installed zipper pulls, okay? All right, let's move on to the next step. So for this next step, go ahead and grab your 1/2 inch D-ring and the remaining D-ring tab, which should be 1 3/4 of an inch. For the sake of time, I've already added DST to the wrong side of the D-ring tab. You can glue it. And we're going to insert our D-ring in through our our D-ring tab. If I can get it in there. And we're going to match the raw edges together and press down so that we can have a D-ring that looks like that, like we've done with the coin pouch. Now with your ruler and a chalk pen or a erasable marker, we're going to measure an eighth of an inch away from the bottom edge. This is our placement line for when we get ready to install this to our zipper panel. Now let's grab our zipper panel. So what we're going to do next, and with our marking pen, we're going to measure a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the zipper panel. And we're going to make a small little mark so that you can see it. Before we install our D-ring tab, I want to give you a different option. If you are right-handed, you will put the D-ring tab to the left side of your zipper panel. If you are left-handed, you will do the opposite. So you would put the 1/2 inch mark on the right side of the zipper panel. And let me show you why. So after you install the D-ring tab to the left side of the zipper panel, your D-ring will be on the right side. That means that you are a right-handed wearer and you are able to access your coin pouch with your right hand. However, if you are left-handed or you're making this bag for someone that is, then you would do the complete opposite and your D-ring tab will be to the left side of the zipper panel. So that's why in the previous step when we put this together, I mentioned whether or not your D-ring will go to the right side or the left side. So if you moved your D-ring tab to the left side, then you would want your D-ring tab to the left side on your zipper panel. So I just want to show you that really quickly. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. So again, if you're right-handed, D-ring tab will go on the left side of the zipper panel, and if you're left-handed, the D-ring tab will go on the right side. So grab your D-ring tab and let's place our D-ring right up against the 1/2 inch line that we just marked and right at the 1/8 inch horizontal line at the bottom of the tab. Let's grab our clip and we're going to the sewing machine and we're going to base stitch our D-ring tab onto our zipper panel. We're going to take our zipper panel and we're going to flip it over where the lining is right side up on our workspace. Let's grab our gusset lining piece and we're going to line the short edges up with the zipper panel right sides together. So the right side of your gusset lining should be facing the right side of the zipper panel lining. Gather a few clips and clip that into place. Let's take this to our sewing machine and base stitch the short edges together. Okay, we have now basted our lining to the zipper panel. We're going to flip that over so that the exterior is right side up. Grab our gusset exterior piece and we're going to line the same edge together and we're going to clip that into place. Next, we're going to our sewing machine and we're going to stitch a 3/8 of an inch across the short edge of the gusset and the gusset lining piece. So all three pieces should be sandwiched together. Right sides together with the lining, right sides together with the exterior. Once we finish stitching the short edges together, take your gusset exterior and fold it back away from the zipper panel. We're going to do the same for the gusset lining. These two pieces should now be wrong sides together. We're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch alongside the edge of the gusset exterior. We're going to do 1/8 of an inch and then we're going to make a second stitch line 1/8 of an inch away from the first stitch line. And again, the second row stitching is completely optional, but if you chose to go that route, this is what your stitching would look like. Next, we're going to add a rivet 1/4 of an inch away from the last stitch line, and we are going to be done with that side. Once your rivet is installed, we're going to repeat the same steps for the opposite side of the zipper panel, matching our exterior pieces to the exterior zipper panel. And then we're going to take the gusset lining, matching them right sides together, and matching the short edges, all 3 short edges together. And then we're going to clip it in place and stitch a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and top stitch, add a rivet, and then we will be done with our gusset. Once you have completed both sides of the gusset, we now have one continuous loop, and we will refer to this as the gusset. We're going to go to our sewing machine next, and we're going to base stitch our exterior with our lining to keep them into place. As I mentioned before in the pattern, to prevent the vinyl from shifting, I'm going to have the vinyl facing right side up on my sewing machine, and I'm just going to base the inside of my gusset. In our next step, we're getting ready to work on our interior slip pocket. So retrieve your slip pocket lining and the slip pocket trim, and we're going to flip our slip pocket over, and we want to find the side that is 8 inches long. So what we're going to do is make a 1-inch line from the outer edge, from one end to the other, and we're going to repeat the same to the opposite side. Grab your DST, and we're going to place the tape alongside the line that we just made on the inside of that line. Let's remove the backing, and we're going to fold the raw edge towards the 1-inch mark line, and we're going to repeat the same for the other side. All right, press those seams down. And then we're going to fold the slip pocket in half, and our raw edges should be matching each other. And we're going to clip that into place. Now let's go to our sewing machine, and we're going to base stitch along the top edge here. Next, let's grab our slip pocket trim and remove the DST from one side. And we're going to lay our slip pocket just below the center line. Give that a good press and remove the backing from the top edge of the slip pocket, the trim. And we're just going to fold that over, and we're going to make sure that we line up the edges with the trim from underneath the slip pocket. And next we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch alongside the raw edge of the slip pocket trim. If you have fabric that is sticking out, just trim away that edge, and now you have a complete slip pocket. So we're getting ready to place our slip pocket onto our back panel lining. So go ahead and grab that. It doesn't matter which one because they're still the same at this point. Make sure that your top and bottom centers are identified. And what we're going to do is make our placement line for where our slip pocket will be. So grab your ruler and a chalk pen or something that can be removed, and we're going to measure 3.5 inches away from the top edge of our back panel lining, and just make a horizontal line going across and complete that line just to make sure it's straight. And then we're going to make a very small vertical line just so that we know where our centers are. Okay. So for now, you should have your horizontal line for the slip pocket placement and a center line to make sure that we place it centered on the back panel lining. All right, we're going to find a center on our slip pocket trim. So do that now, make a small little mark. And I like to, and if you haven't noticed now, I'll put DST on everything, okay? So I'm just gonna add a strip of DST to the back. You don't have to do this step, this is strictly optional. I just don't like to have my slip pocket moving when I'm getting ready to attach it to my lining piece, but you can clip yours into place like the instructions suggest, or you can find whatever method works for you. So I'm going to remove the backing off of the DST and flip that over and just place that right below my slip pocket guideline. And then I'm going to get a ruler to make sure the placement is even. If you need to adjust your slip pocket, do so now before we top stitch. And I think that my placement is good to go. So now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch on all 3 sides, pivoting at each corner and going up towards the top of the trim, and we're going to stop there. So let's do that now. Now that we've added our slip pocket to our back panel lining, we're going to add 2 rivets to each end of the slip pocket trim. We're doing that to give the slip pocket more security. That way when the person is opening the pocket, they're not pulling away at the seams or loosening up the stitches on the side. We're just placing it right there on the stitch line. If you retrieve the centerpiece that we removed from the zipper box and make 2 cuts, 2 small cuts, you can use that to add to the back side of your panel so that the rivet doesn't pull through the fabric as the person is pulling on the slip pocket. So I'm just going to make 2 holes there so my rivet can go through. And I'm going to install 2 rivets and add those small cutouts to the back, because over time things wear down, so we just want to give it a little bit more stability. And now we're going to install our rivets. And now we're complete with the slip pocket back panel lining piece. Okay, we're getting ready to work on our front panel. Retrieve your front panel exterior, and if you haven't done so already, go ahead and install your label. The measurements are in the pattern. And what we're going to do next is grab our ruler and we're going to measure where our front pocket will be placed. So we're making our guideline for our front pocket. So go ahead and make your mark. And then we're going to make a small vertical line just so that we know where our center is. Retrieve your front pocket, and on the wrong side, apply 1/8 of an inch DST around the outer edge of the front pocket. And it is also best if we go ahead and mark our center on our front pocket. So let me do that now. And once again, you can use your pattern piece to mark your center or to find your center. And that's what I'm going to do now. Okay. All right, so my center has been identified. So let me retrieve my exterior panel again. And we are going to remove the paper backing off of from the DST. And with that center line, line the front pocket right up against the horizontal line and make sure that it's centered with the vertical line that we've just previously marked. All right, and press down firmly. And if you want to double check, use your ruler again. Make sure that everything lines up exactly, especially on the sides. And once you're good with that placement, we can now move on. We're getting ready to go to our sewing machine. We're going to start and end with long thread tails, and we're going to top stitch around all 3 sides of the outer perimeter of the front pocket. We're also going to do a second row of stitching that is 3/8 of an inch away from the outer edge of the front pocket on all 3 sides as well. So let's do that now. And once we're done top stitching, we're going to flip over our exterior panel and pull the long thread tails to the back. And we're going to tie off the thread tails and seal them with glue. And before we move on, we want to test our pocket. So grab your coin pouch and just slide your coin pouch inside of the front pocket. Make sure it fits pretty nicely. If you need to make adjustments, I mean, of course it's too late at this point, but you just want to make sure you have a very nice fit. So if everything is good, let's put the coin pouch to the side. And what we're going to do next is install rivets at the top left and right corners of our front pocket. And once again, we're just adding rivets to make sure that we're not pulling so much tension on the outer corner. So we want to make sure it's nice and stable, because this pocket will get continuous use, and we want to prevent our pocket from ripping. Make sure to add your stabilizer to the back so the rivet doesn't pull through. And we're going to give this a press and set our rivets into place. When it's all said and done, our 2 rivets should now be installed. We're getting ready to add our piping strip. So let's retrieve that now. And I want you all to recognize that the right side of the piping strip is where you see the ridge. Underneath that, there's a flat surface. That is the wrong side. So we're going to apply our piping strip right up against the outer edge of the exterior panel, and we're going to clip our piping around the entire perimeter. And as we work around our curves, we need to clip as we go as well, because we want the piping to hug and lay flat around those curves, and we can't do that when you don't clip. So let's do that now. Let's clip the piping into place. And since I'm at my first curve, I'm just going to make small 1/8 or 1/8 of an inch snips. So very small snips around that curve. And as you can see, you see how nicely that lays against the surface of the panel? That's what we want. So we're going to do that, and for the same as we move towards the top of our exterior panel. And we're going to clip again when we reach the other side around this curve. So let's go ahead and do that. If you're dealing with your fabric puckering up or it's not laying flat, you just need to make some small adjustments and make sure that your piping is seated. There might be a little bit of some tension going on here, and we want to get rid of that. So you might be pulling too tight around the corners. So we need to give that a little bit of, we need to push the fabric out just a little bit. Okay, and once you have it nice and flat to your liking, you'll notice that you'll have a overhang of just extra piping, and we're just going to clip that off and make sure that we have both ends meet each other. So this is where our piping overlay comes into place. So what I want you all to do is just find the center. So just fold it in half and make a little mark inside there because we want this to be even. We don't want to just place it anywhere. All right, now once your center has been identified, we are placing that right between the two ends, but right at the center mark. So here's my center. I am just moving my piping overlay right on that center line where my center mark is, and I'm just going to place my piping strip ends together so it seems as if it's one continuous piece, and fold over that piping overlay. And all we're going to do is clip that in place, okay? And it should look just like this. All right, now we're going to go to our sewing machine, and we are basting our piping onto our exterior panel, but we are basting right up against the cording at 3/8 of an inch. So we want to make sure that we're basting the cording at 3/8 of an inch, and I'll see you back here when you're done. Our piping is now attached to the main panel exterior, and hopefully that wasn't too difficult. Should be fairly easy, but if you notice, this is our clean seam. This is what we want when we actually put the bag together. So it looks really nice once we're done with everything. So let's retrieve our front panel lining, and we are going to flip our lining over to the wrong side. So the wrong side is facing up. And let's place our exterior panel right on top. We are basting these two pieces together. So grab your clips and clip them into place. And let's flip it over. You should have a nice flat lining piece. What we're going to do is go to the sewing machine once again, and we're going to base stitch our lining piece to our exterior panel, and we are basting on the outer edge at 1/8 of an inch. We're not basting near our piping like we previously did. We're just basting on the outer perimeter at 1/8 of an inch. It's looking good, you all. So we have now officially completed our front exterior panel. Our lining is now attached, and we are going to put this off to the side and work on our back panel. Let's grab our back panel exterior, and with our pattern piece, place that right on top, and we are going to trace around the perimeter of the zipper box. And then we're going to cut this section out. If you wish to edge code the inside perimeter of the zipper box, you may do that, but I'm not going to do that today. So let's flip our back panel over, and we are going to make a few lines around the zipper box. So measure 3/8 of an inch above the top and bottom zipper box. And these are our guidelines for our zipper tape. And we're going to do a 1/2 inch on the sides. Next, grab your zipper tape, and with your 1/8 of an inch DST, apply a strip at the top and bottom of the zipper tape. It's easier to do this step without the zipper pull installed because it just puckers the fabric up a tad bit and it doesn't lay flat. That's just my preference though. Now we're going to install our zipper pull. And again, this is all about preference, but I'm going to show you which direction your zipper pull should be sitting. So if you like your zipper to open from left to right, then make sure that your zipper is facing in the direction to the left, and of course the opposite. So I'm just going to flip this over, remove the paper backing from one long edge of the zipper tape, and lay that flat right up against the markings that we've just made. Make sure your zipper pull is not sticking to the tape. Okay, and then remove the backing from the remaining edge. You might have to lift your panel up a little bit so the zipper can fall through, so it's not caught underneath like this. And just press down, press your zipper tape down on those lines. And what we're going to do is add a strip of DST right below the zipper tape here. And once we applied our zipper tape, remove the backing. And we are going to lay our zipper lining pocket right side facing down, and the bottom edge right up against the end of the zipper tape from one end to the other, and just make sure that it is situated on the DST. Press that into place. Let's flip our back panel over. And I like very clean top stitching lines. So once again, I'm just doing a little cheat. And I'm just going to add my markings here, which are 1/8 of an inch, or I'm sorry, 1/8 of an inch away from the outside zipper box. So I have my two marks that are 1/8 of an inch outside of the zipper box. And we're going to go to the sewing machine next, and we are going to top stitch the bottom edge of our zipper box, starting with long and thread tails at the first mark, and we're going to stitch all the way to the end of our second mark. All right, we finished the bottom row top stitching. Let's pull these thread tails to the rear of the back panel, or the wrong side, and we are going to tie them off and seal them with glue like we've been doing throughout this tutorial. Thread tails have now been tied off. Let's add another strip of DST to the bottom edge of the lining pocket. Peel the paper backing off, and we're going to take our lining pocket and pull that down so we can get a nice clean edge right there at the top. And this is going to keep our fabric laying flat so it doesn't get caught in the zipper. Now we're going to add another or an additional strip of DST right above or right along the long edge of the zipper tape. I'm just doing it above today. Peel the paper backing off. And then we're going to fold up our lining pocket. Now everything should be right sides together. This is the wrong side of, I'll put it on the wrong tape. Okay, so your wrong side should be facing up of your lining. So you should have your right side to right side, wrong side. And we are going to flip our exterior panel back over, and we're going to continue our top stitch from the side edge. We're going to pivot, go across, pivot back down until we reach the first stitch hole that we've made when we did the first stitch line. We should now have a complete top stitch around the entire perimeter of the zipper box. We should also have long thread tails. Flip your back panel onto the wrong side, and once again we're going to pull our long thread tails out and tie them and seal them. We are now at the end of our zipper pocket installation, so let's flip our back panel back onto its right side and fold over the side edge of the back panel so that you can see the zipper tape along with the lining, and we're going to sew a quarter of an inch seam allowance from the top all the way to the bottom, and we want to hug as closely as we can to the zipper box so that we can just make sure that we have a very secure edge. We're going to turn over or flip or rotate the back panel and repeat the same step for the other side and stitch from one end all the way up towards the top. Our zipper lining is now complete. Our ends are sealed and our zipper pocket works as intended. Okay, so let's put this off to the side and grab our backstrap band. We already fused the foam to the center. If you haven't done so, do that now. And let's remove the backing off from one edge of the backstrap. And we're going to fold that down to our line or marking that we made previously. So this is just going to be about a quarter of an inch that we're folding over. If you can't see your line, you know, just pull back your fabric a little bit, your foam, so that you can have a nice, even, clean edge. And repeat the same for the opposite end. And then press those seams down so you can get a nice crisp edge. And once you're done, you should have it should look similar to this. So in this next step, we're going to work with our straps and handle. And I want you all to focus on the end that has the cutout, the missing piece. Once again, the opposite should not have anything cut from it. It should be just a regular looking strap. And on the back side or wrong side, we're going to apply a strip of DST just at the very bottom of our strap pieces. And we're going to repeat the same for our handle. On the side that does not have the missing section, apply DST to each end of the handle. Okay, so let's put this aside for now. Now with your ruler, we're going to mark our guideline for our back strap placement. So refer back to your pattern if you need the measurements. And we're just going to draw a faint horizontal line going across. And if you want to make sure that this is even, just take your ruler and measure it from the guideline to the bottom of your back panel. And if everything measures up nicely, we can proceed with attaching our back strap band. And if you forgot to mark your centers like I did, make sure you do that now. Now with our centers marked, let's draw a vertical line just down the center of our horizontal line. This is our guideline once again. And to the right of that, make your first mark for where your handle will be, and on the opposite side repeat the same. And once again, these measurements are in the pattern. All right, so you should have an equal distance between the center mark. Let's put this aside for now, and we're going to retrieve our handle. We're going to measure 3/4 away from the bottom edge. And we're placing those marks on the side where the gap is. And let's grab our back panel, and we are going to remove the DST from both ends of our handle piece, just so that we can place it right up against the vertical line that we've made. That is our guideline for our handle and our straps. So press down firmly into place. Let's retrieve one of our straps, and the side seam where it's open, we want that to be facing inwards. We don't want it outwards. We don't want it facing outwards like this. We want it facing inwards towards the center. So remove the backing off from the DST, and we're going to line our strap right up against where the handle is. And we're going to repeat the same for the other strap. The opening seam needs to be towards the center. Let's remove the backing, and line this side up right up against our handle and press that down into place. And let's clip these into place so they do not move as we continue working with this panel. We want to make sure they're nice and even. And if you see, I have a little gap here, so I'm actually going to reposition my handle right up against that vertical line. All right, so make adjustments necessary if you need to. And let me clip that back into place. Okay. Now let's retrieve our back strap band, and if you haven't done so already, let's add a strip of DST, and we're just going to apply 1/8 of an inch of our DST towards the raw edge of our fold. So we're not going to do the top edge, we're going to do the lower edge of our fold. And I'm just using 1/8 of an inch of DST. And because I'm a little extra, I'm just going to add 1/4 inch of, or 1/2 inch of DST just right down the center of my foam. I do not like fighting with my fabric, so that's why I do these things. So let's peel away the backing from the DST from all places that we place them. And let's place that back strap band right up against the placement line, the guideline that we've made. So just firmly push that down and walk that over and just make sure everything is evenly placed. And I like to do checks and balances, so I'm going to use my seam gauge and just measure the distance between the zipper box and the back panel and just make sure everything lines up correctly. I am liking what I'm seeing right now, and I think I did a good job with the placement. So once we have done that, we're going to go back to our sewing machine and we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch going across the top and the bottom of our back strap band. When we return, we're going to do an additional top stitch right below the first stitch line. Let's remove our clips. We are done with the first 2 rows of top stitching at the top and bottom. And now we're just going to measure 1/2 inch in from the outer edge, and we're just going to make a small little tick mark right there, and we're going to repeat the same on the opposite side. We're going to start and end with long thread tails, and we're going to top stitch from the first mark across all the way until we reach the second mark. Our second row of top stitching is now complete. Let's flip our back panel exterior over, and we're going to pull those long thread tails out. We're going to tie them and seal them with glue, and then I will meet you back here in our next step. Grab your 2 strap connectors and your 2 rectangle rings, and you should already have your center line marked and your DST applied to the wrong side of your strap connector. Let's peel off the backing, and we're just going to fold over our raw edge towards the center and repeat the same for the other strap connector. Let's apply a strip of DST to the lower edge or bottom edge of one side of your connector pieces. Same for the other. And with one of your rectangle rings, let's feed the strap connector through and remove the backing. And we're just going to match the raw edges together at the end and press in place. And we have one of our strap connectors completed. We're going to repeat the same for the other strap connector. Fold that over, match the raw ends together. And now we have 2 strap connector pieces. With your ruler, measure 1/4 inch away from the bottom edge of your strap connector piece. We're going to repeat the same for the second one. Let's retrieve our side connector pieces, and we need to find the center of both pieces before we attach our strap connectors to them. So with your ruler, find your center and make a small little tick mark, and repeat the same for the other side connector piece. Okay. And what we're going to do next is measure a 1/4 inch away from the center mark. This is going to be our guideline for our strap connector. So just make that line a little longer than the center line so you won't confuse yourself. And repeat the same on the second strap connector, side connector piece. Let's remove one of our side connector pieces off to the side, and let's just focus on one. Grab your strap connector, and we're going to line up the lower mark to the top edge of our side connector, and we're just going to place it right up against the 1/4 inch line that we've made, the longer line. So we're just going to place that right up against that line, and we're going to match the line with the top edge of our strap connector. Let's clip that into place. So it should look like this. So you have your placement mark, and it is flush with the 1/4 inch mark at the bottom of our strap connector. And we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're just going to baste our strap connector onto our side connector piece. Our strap connector is now basted onto our side connector, and we are going to fold these two wings in half and clip them into place. Like so, and we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the long edge where the strap connector is. We're going to sew across from one end to the other. And when you're done, your side connector will look like this. You are going to repeat the same for the other side connector. And what we're going to do is pull back the fabric so that we can expose the side connector. And with your point turning tool, just push the edge, the corner edge right here. Just push that up so that you can get a nice straight edge going from one end to the other. And we're going to repeat the same for the other side connector. Once again, with your point turning tool, just push up in that corner. Okay, you get a nice crisp 90-degree angle. Now we're going to clip the open seams together and do the same for the other side connector. And before we top stitch, we need to make sure that the neat top stitching is going to be on the right side of the strap connector. So when we attach our side connectors to our bag on the back panel, they will be positioned like so. So they will be up against the side edge of the back panel, and your rectangle rings will be facing upwards towards the center. So when we top stitch, we want the top stitch to be shown on the outside of the bag. So just keep that in mind when you do top stitch. So the side that's going to be exposed is where you want your neat top stitching to show. So we're going to top stitch from one end. We're going to pivot at the corner and go across and back down the side seams. And we're going to repeat the same for the second side connector piece. So now that we're done with that, I want to do something that is going to make the next step a little easier. This is not in a pattern. This is pretty much an afterthought in this moment. But I want to identify which side is my left and right side, because once again, the top stitching should be on the right side of the side connector. So we want to position our connectors the way that we would on the back panel. So all I'm going to do is just write an L for left, and I can erase this when I'm done, and I'm going to make an R for the right side. And this will let me know that these are the side connectors that are facing right side up, and this connector goes to the left and this connector goes to the right of the back panel. Now let's retrieve our back panel, and we need to make our placement lines or guidelines for our side connectors. So refer back to the pattern and go ahead and make your markings to the left and right of the back panel. And with the side connector that is identified for the right side, we are going to lay that in position. We're going to position that right above the placement guide and clip that into place. And we will do the same for the opposite side and clip the left connector in place. Next, let's go to the sewing machine, and we are going to base stitch our side connectors to the back panel. Our side connectors are now basted to our back panel. Before we move on, I forgot to mention that if you wish to add rivets to the outer edge of your zipper box, you can do so. Again, it's completely optional. But before we move on, let's go ahead and flip over our back panel, and we just want to trim away our fabric that is sticking out before we move on. And do the same if you have your side connector sticking out just a little bit. We want a flush edge all the way around. Next, let's flip this back over, and we're going to add our piping strip around the perimeter of the bag as we did in the step with the front panel. We're going to the sewing machine, and we're going to base stitch our piping onto our back panel, and we are going to stay as close to the cording as possible when we do it. All right, so after that, if you have any additional markings that are showing on your fabric, wipe them away now before we move on, and clean up any glue residue or anything else that you may have on your panel. Make sure to get behind the back strap so we don't see our cheat work back there. Okay, let's flip our back panel towards the wrong side and retrieve your back panel lining, the one that has the slip pocket, and we are going to baste our lining onto our main panel. So clip that around the entire perimeter of your back panel. And once you're done clipping, go to the sewing machine and base stitch around the entire perimeter of the panel. Okay. And once you're done, our back panel should now be complete. We should now have our lining attached, and both of our front and back panels should look like these two here. Okay, we made it. We are in the final construction phase. Let's get excited, okay? So before we move on, let's grab our front exterior panel, and we need to make our new notches again for our centers. So flip that over, and you just need to find where your notches were previously and just cut right into them so that you can make them a little bit more visible before we put the gusset on top of or with our main panel. So just cut through your piping and your lining. It doesn't need to be a large notch, just a small notch for you to see. It should look something similar to this, and we're going to do the same for the bottom. Okay. Top and bottom notches have now been made. Put that to the side, and we need to do the same for our gusset if you haven't done so already. So fold your gusset in half and try your best to match the seams on the side together. And fold your gusset down so that you can fold the top in half and make your notches on both sides of your gusset or zipper panel and at the bottom gusset here. This next step is going to make life so much easier. And again, this is optional, but you all know it at this point. I'll put DST on everything. So with our DST, we're just going to add our strip around the perimeter of our front panel. And we're going to go all the way around. You can use 1/8 of an inch if you prefer, if you don't want your needle to be sticky, but I believe that the 1/4 inch DST holds a little bit better than the slim version or the slimmer size of the DST. So again, work your way around those corners. Doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure the DST sticks. And press that around, making sure you get good around the corners. And when you're done, it should look like this. Before we remove the DST, take your gusset and flip it inside out. And depending on where your D-ring tab is, I want you to make sure that it's facing down towards the front panel. So your D-ring shouldn't be facing up towards the back. It should be facing down towards the front panel, whether it's on the right side or the left side. So once we have identified that, don't do anything, just carefully move it to the side in the position that you have it in. And we are going to remove the DST from our front panel. All the way around. So again, let's take our gusset and we are going to match the centers top and bottom. Like so. Just the top and just the bottom. Okay. So we have that stuck down a little bit. Put a few clips in place so it doesn't move. And at one of your corners, I need you to make a very short snip, about 1/8 of an inch around the bottom corner. Just enough to where your fabric lays flat around the curve. So once you've done that, just press down around until you reach the other side. And you should have your corners that look like that. It's very important that you snip those curves. Okay? Let's grab some clips and clip that into place. And we're going to work up towards our next curve. Once again, let's clip around the top edge of our zipper panel. All the way up until you reach the center. And once again, let's press down on our gusset towards the back panel. Make sure you have some good coverage. Your gusset should really lay nicely. You shouldn't really have to struggle with this at all. I promise you. I promise you this is a very smooth application. Okay, add a few clips. Now let's rotate to the other side and we're going to do the same as we did on this side. Did I say that backwards? We're going to do the same as we did on this side to this side. Okay, okay. And if it helps, if you want to make sure that you don't cut too far, we've already basted our gusset. So just make your snips towards the basted stitch. So it should only be 1/8 of an inch away from the outer edge. So just make your snips right up into your stitch line. All right. Now isn't that the most easiest gusset that you have ever put together in your life? I promise you I was trying to make it easier for you all. And I'm glad I did. This was so easy. Hopefully you didn't have to reposition anything. It should have laid down perfectly without being aggressive or working those muscles to pin it down. All right, enough chit chat. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to the sewing machine and we are actually stitching 3/8 of an inch to attach our gusset to our back panel, and make sure that you're getting as close as you can to the piping. Don't sew on the piping, but close enough. It should be 3/8 of an inch, and if you use your guide on your sewing machine at 3/8 of an inch, you will do perfect with this step. And let me not forget, unzip your zipper panel and move that out the way when you get ready to stitch. You want to lay the gusset down flat as possible so that you can work around your curves nicely and you don't have to resist, or you don't have fabric fighting with you, okay? And before you begin stitching, make sure you're using either a zipper foot or a cording foot, and you want to position your foot right up against the cording. You should be able to feel it on the left hand side. And I'm using my guidelines right here. This is 3/8 of an inch. I'm not going to focus on the cording to my left because that's going to throw me off. So as long as I stay on the guideline, you will do just fine stitching these two pieces together. So let's go. Hopefully that wasn't too bad, and I highly recommend that you use thread that matches your fabric. I only did this because I want you all to see my stitches for the sake of this video, but once I turn it over, you should have a perfectly 3/8 of an inch stitch around the back panel. And I want you all to push out your fabric so you can see if you need to make any adjustments or go back and sew over areas that the piping is not attached. So for instance, sometimes when I get at this seam here, I have a little bit of stitching exposure, if you will. And so I'm just going to go back and stitch closer to the cording so I don't see the stitches. This is why it's important to use thread that matches closely to your piping color so that you don't see your mistakes through your bag. So I'm going to continue to push this out just to see where I'm at. And once again, check your curves because you'll have some stitching showing through there if you didn't get as close as you could. And once again on the other side here. So I'm just going to go back and make my final touches, but you should have a very clean edge that should be tight like this here. So we've already done that side when we basted the piping down, but when we get ready to actually stitch, you want the same resemblance on that side, on this side as well. You do not want to see any of your stitching that you've made previously. It should all be closed. So when it's all said and done and you put your bag together, you see how beautiful that is? You have a very clean rounded edge for your Aimani backpack. So if you need to make your touch-ups, go ahead and do that now, and then I will see you back here for the next step. Now's the time to trim away any of your fabric that is sticking out. So if you have some of your lining that is protruding outside of the normal seam allowance, just cut that away. But do not cut into the seam allowance, just cut just the excess, because we need this for when we start to do our binding process. So do not cut into that, please. This gives it structure. Moving right along, let's add the DST to the outer perimeter of the back panel. If you haven't done so already, before we move on, make sure that you snip your notches for your center This is important. We can't forget this. And don't do what I just did and forget. Make sure you do the top too. Let's grab our straps and we need to put them away. Let's wrap these up pretty neatly. And we're going to open up our zipper pocket back here and just push that in there so they are not in the way. Okay. All right, now let's grab the half-made portion and let's place our back panel to the opposite side of our gusset. And once again, we are matching our centers, top and bottom first. And we are clipping the corners and the top edge. So this is what the back panel should look like after attaching that to the opposite side of the gusset all the way around. Just make sure that you're pressing down on your seams so that you can make sure that the DST is sticking to both pieces of the fabric and that you clipped it in place. And once again, we're going to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch 3/8 of an inch around the entire perimeter of the back panel, making sure that we stitch as closely as possible to the piping. Now that we're done with the second panel and we have attached that to our gusset, once again, go around and just make sure that you trim away any of the fabric that is sticking outside of the edges here. And we're going to do a final check to make sure that our bag looks like it should before we put the binding on. So again, this is optional. However, I highly recommend that we pull this bag through and make sure that our seams look nice and our piping looks nice and how they should be intended to look. So I believe I am completely satisfied with my piping. Hopefully you are as well. If not, again, go back and make those final touch-ups. But here I need to get close to the edge. This is why I believe it's important that we pull this bag through to make sure that we are catching those stitches that are visible. Okay, so I know what I need to do, so I'm going to flip the bag inside out again, go back and make those touch-ups, and then after that we are going to do our binding. After your two panels are now attached to the gusset, we are going to start our binding process. So I have some pre-made double fold bias tape. This is a 1/2 inch double fold. Make sure it is double fold. And you can also use your pre-made bias tape. You can use waterproof canvas, but for the sake of time, and I don't really like to cut too much, I like to use the pre-made bias. So what we're gonna do next is open our bias tape, or on the end that you're working on, we're going to make 2 diagonal cuts on each side. And this is so when we fold our bias flat, we don't have some of the seams sticking out, so we just kind of want a nice, clean, professional look. So just make about 1/4 inch off diagonally, okay? And I'm going to rotate my bag, and I am going to start at my center and open your folded bias tape, and we're going to place our bias right around the edge of our seams, and we're going to clip that into place. And as we work around, just make sure that you are working with the curves and we're going to go all the way around until we meet back at the start position. And then once I'm done, I'll tell you what to do next once we get there. Okay, now that we've reached the end, we're not going to stop exactly at the starting position mark or cut. What we're going to do is cut 3/4 of an inch further down past the start position, and we just need enough to fold over our bias tape onto its back side or the wrong side. So again, cut your diagonals on either side of the bias tape, and we are just going to fold that down about a half inch, and we're going to remove the first section of our bias and place that down, and we're going to overlap our bias with this piece here, and again fold this down about a half inch and just place that right on top, and now we have a clean edge. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there and make adjustments as necessary, but we don't need to see the bias tape underneath, so it should be flushed like that. Add another clip, and what we want to do next is turn it over to its side, and we want to make sure that the bias is catching underneath, so we have to make small adjustments. So just pull back the fabric and make sure that you have your bias tape covering both front and back side of your edge. And then when we go to our sewing machine, we're going to lay our panel flat down in this position. So your panel should be flat towards the surface of your sewing machine, and you're just going to do a scant 3/8 of an inch around the perimeter of your bias tape, and just make sure that when you're stitching, it's catching the fabric underneath. That's why we're making the adjustments as necessary to make sure that our stitching is not going away from our bias tape. Okay. If you want to get the piping right, of course it's going to take time and patience and skill, and over time you'll get there. So don't be afraid to do it, but here's a little transparency. So sometimes I don't really care for the pre-made bias tape, but in times I do. However, sometimes the width or the thickness of your fabric may not have your bias tape come all the way down. So on the other side, as you can see, it looks very nice and clean. However, this is the part that I was talking about when it comes to making sure that your stitching goes through and through both the fabric and the bias tape. So I am going to cheat a little bit and just add a strip of DST, about 1/8 of an inch, right there where that opening is, because I don't want to continue to readjust as I go. I actually just want to be done with it. Wherever you have any gaps, nobody will ever know, trust me. But just add your DST there, and then we're just going to remove the backing and press the bias tape down. And that way when we go to restitch along those same stitch lines, we will make sure to catch that fabric underneath. But if you're good at installing bias tape, then you're good to go. But for some of us who do it every other now and then, sometimes we'll have our little struggle points, but that is all right. And I don't like adding bias tape the old school way. I don't like to stitch around first and then go back over the stitching again. I could never get it right, so I'm just being honest about that. I prefer to just do the fold all together at once and call it a day. Okay, so once we've done that, we're gonna go right back to the sewing machine and just re-stitch and make sure we catch our bias tape underneath. So I finished my bias tape. Now I want to share with you a little cheat code, if you will. These are for my newbies and those who really hate dealing with binding. Nobody has to be an expert at anything. We learn as we go. So I took the liberty and added a strip of 1/8 inch of DST, and all I did was apply the DST to the inside edge right up against my stitch line where we attached our gusset to our panels. All I did was go all the way around the entire perimeter of the bag, and I laid my bias tape right up against that line so you can hardly see it. And so that way it won't move when you stitch, and when you turn it over, you can now work with the rest of your fabric by bringing it over and adding your clips and work alongside that edge as you go along. I promise you, this is the holy grail, the bread and butter. This will work out fabulous, and you may even like binding even better. I understand that we're using a lot of DST, but sometimes we're going to use it for what it's intended, and it's to help us get through our projects. So I'm going to continue clipping around the outer edge. I'm going to stitch a scant 3/8 of an inch, and then I'll see you back here when I'm done. So if you like the second option better, where you add the DST towards the outer edge of the stitch line, then you will have a very nice binding going around, and you should now have front and back panels both bounded. Let's go ahead and turn our bag. Let's birth it, turn it right side out. All right. Whew. What a task. So let's go around and press down on our creases. Let's shape the bag, basically. Just do that all the way around, so we get those nice crisp edges. Okay. All right. Your bag is now birthed or turned. Okay, so this is what your bag should look like. And again, the wrinkles will start to settle out on its own, so don't worry about that. We're getting ready to install our strap adjuster. So with one of your straps, make sure your strap is not twisted. The free end or the bottom edge of your strap, grab one of your strap adjusters, and we're going to feed the end through the first opening of our strap adjuster. We're going to go over our center bar back down through the second opening of our strap adjuster. Now I'm going to get a little bit more strap because I need some to work with, and we need to leave a gap. We don't want it to be flat like this because we need to feed the rest of the strap through the strap adjuster, so add a little bit of a space there. Now with the free end, once again, make sure the strap is not twisted. We're going to go through the outside of the rectangle ring through the inside, and we are going to feed the free end of the strap through the second opening of the strap adjuster. So we're going through the second opening, over the center bar, and back down through the first opening. Okay, and it should look something like this. Then we're going to take the free end and fold it back onto itself about 1/2 of an inch down. That's how much we need. And we're going to rivet this into place. So let's clip this for now. Okay, so this is what your strap should look like. We're going to clip that. And with your leather punch, we are going to punch a hole for our rivet through both pieces of fabric. Now, if you don't want your straps to be as long, you can do about 1.25 inches. But if you want to add strap ends, then yes, leave a little bit of space so that you can install your rivet and add your strap end. If not, if you just like it bare, then you don't need your strap to be that long, but just enough to where you can install your rivet. So I'm going to do that now. and make sure it went through and through. And grab your rivet. And with your rivet press your rivet into place. And once you have done one side of your strap, repeat the same step for the other side. Okay, so both of your straps are done. Everything should be looking really good at this point. Every single thing. Okay, I'm just going to shorten my straps up a bit so I can have some space to work with. All right, final step. Now let's grab your strap adjuster and we are going to clip one end to the D-ring. And here is your coin pouch. And clip the other end to the D-ring for the coin pouch. And all we're going to do is slide down our coin pouch. And here is your completed Aimani backpack. This concludes our tutorial for the Aimani backpack. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that your bag turned out to be everything that you envisioned. So go ahead and flaunt your bag with style, and I'll see you back here for the next tutorial. Take care.